Hey guys, welcome to part 1 on how to set up a Gns3 virtual lab utilizing Checkpoint Software Technologies. Today, we're going to be going over the setup and configuration of Gns3 as well as setting up our virtual topology. So, without further ado, let's take a look and see what we're working with. So this is the topology that we'll be looking to replicate in Gns3. So we can see here we have a pair of firewalls, one in Miami, one in Tampa, being separated over the internet. We're going to have a management server, as well as an Active Directory server and a DMZ web server. Behind the Miami firewall, we will be having a management switch with a management endpoint device. And behind the data plane, we'll call it Miami Data, we will be having a Windows machine and a macOS machine as well. We will also be having a remote user to simulate remote access VPN, and we'll be doing things like site-to-site VPN from Miami Firewall to Tampa Firewall, and as well as the configuration and setup of the remaining blades, also known as features, on our gateway. And we can see here that we do have the internal addresses already allocated. We have a couple of different interfaces on firewall 1. So we have a 172.16.10 for our data plane. We do have a 16.20 for our DMZ and a 10 dot for our management. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at all the different files that we're going to need before we get started. So the only prerequisite is that you guys are going to need Vmware Workstation. I do believe that VMware Player, which is the free version, works as well, but for all intents and purposes, we will be working with Workstation in this video series. So this is the Windows Server ISO. This is the Checkpoint R8040 Gaia ISO, which we'll be using to install the gateway and manager. Smart Console. This is used to set policy and things like that. You can install this on your host machine as well because we will be utilizing a bridge interface. But traditionally in real life this will be set up on the management endpoint. We will also be utilizing what's called the Gns3 VM, which is we'll be diving a little bit into in a moment. Of course, you'll want the topology as well as the Gns3 all-in-one installation package, as well as any flavor of Linux that you'd like to run the web server. I just like using Ubuntu Budgie, but that's not required. And then you'll also need a Windows 10 ISO to install on your endpoints. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on our Gns3 installation. Oh, and just to mention, I will be leaving a link in the description to where you can find a download of all of these files. So we can pretty much just use all of the default settings on Gns3. So we can just kind of click through next on everything. You can just put anything here. Let's go ahead and wait for Gns3 to start up. So as we spoke about earlier, running an appliance inside a virtual machine within the Gns3 VM is best practice. It's essentially a little container that runs essentially a Linux base that will run all of the appliances on top of it. But overall, this is best practice for running appliances within the Gns3 topology. Okay. So what actually we're going to want to do before continuing with this is open up Vmware Workstation. And after you have the Gns3 VM downloaded, which is this zip and extracted, we can click and drag this over here to bring it in. Go ahead and click import. Okay, let's go ahead and click next. Let's go ahead and give this the amount of cores that you're utilizing. I have 8 cores, 16 threads. So I'll just give this 8, and I'll be giving this 32 gigs of RAM. I do have 64 in total. So depending on the RAM that you have on your machine, you can size it appropriately. Well, actually, let's do this. Let's go ahead and check the settings and see if those came. So, okay, so 8 processors and just shy of 32 gigs because of the actual conversion slightly different. That's fine. And finish. Perfect. So now the next thing that we're going to want to do is set up the network interfaces that we'll be utilizing with Gns3 in conjunction with VMware. So let's go ahead and go to Edit Preferences. Let's go to VMware Advanced Local Settings. We probably don't need to go all the way up to 19, but it's the default value, so I'll just use it. If we click Configure, it'll go ahead and start adding the additional network interfaces to your host machine. Let's give this a second, let it run. All right, now that that's done, we can actually start building out our topology. So let's go ahead and set up that bridge interface first so we can get our virtual topology connected to the internet. Okay, so it's going to be the cloud. Oh, oops, we actually got to start a project first. That would help. Let's do a new blank project, call it Checkpoint Lab. Okay. It's going to be on the Gns3 VM. So everything's going to be on the Gns3 VM except for the endpoints, essentially. Okay. And now what actually we're going to have to do is set up the bridge interface on the Gns3 VM. So to do that, we're actually going to have to go in here and add another network adapter and set this to VMnet0. This is going to be the bridge interface for the NIC on your machine. Okay, and to go ahead and confirm that, what we can do is go to Edit, Virtual Network Editor, and you can't see VMnet0. You have to elevate. And there we go. So VMnet0 is our bridge network. This is set to automatic, but go ahead and choose your Ethernet adapter, unless you're using wireless, which in that case you'd want to select your wireless adapter. Okay. Apply. Let's give it a second. Go ahead and click OK. And we're done. We're going to have to reload the cloud appliance. And on Gns3, sometimes there's a bug, depending on which version you're using, where you might need to hold right click. Otherwise, it just automatically clicks. It's kind of a strange Gns3 bug, but I'd like to at least let you know that. So if you see where I right click on something and it just automatically clicks and pops something up, it's most likely me just forgetting to hold it down. We can see here there's only ETH0 and ETH1. We just added another the bridge interface on the Gns3 VM. So once we delete this and re-add it, we should see ETH2. Okay. Mouse over, and yeah, so we do have ETH2 now. Perfect. Let's go ahead and add the switch. This switch is going to be emulating the internet in our topology. So let's go ahead and change the host name to internet, as well as change the symbol. There's that right click bug. Let's go to, just name this bridge. So the bug kind of applies to left click as well. Hopefully Gns3 fixes that. Alright, so ETH0 to ETH0. Now we have our internet connection set up. Let's go ahead and start working on our gateway. So first things what you're going to do is create a new template, manually create. Okay. Types of virtual machines that we'll be using for the appliances is QEMU. So let's go to new. Run this on the Gns3 VM. Name. Let's go with. Well, actually, let's go with Miami Firewall. Give it at least 4 gigs. So you can use Telnet or VNC. VNC would be for, let's say, our Active Directory server where we can utilize a GUI. Otherwise, just use Telnet. And the disk image, let's just go finish because we'll do some modifications in here. So let's go and take a look. So first things first, we're going to want to mount the installation image in the CD/DVD-ROM. All right, so this will take a couple minutes. All right, now that it's done mounting on the CD-ROM drive, we can move over to the HDD. Let's create a QCOW2 hard drive. Use default values here. And depending on the space you have on your hard drive, I like to go with 120 gigs. I like to go with 4 cores, and 4 gigs RAM should be fine. And that should do it. Oh, wait. Let's go ahead and configure the network adapters. So this is going to have 4. So okay, perfect. Let's take a look at our topology. So ETH1 is going to go to the internet. ETH0 will be going to our data plane, and ETH2 will be going to our management. So for right now, let's go ahead and set up those switches. Oh, left click bug. Okay. Let's refer back to our topology. So ETH2 is management. Okay. And then ETH0. All right, perfect. So let's go ahead and, that's the right click bug. Let's go ahead and fire this up. After you start it up, you're going to want to go to the console. And we can see what's going on. So we're going to want to install Gaia on the system. All right. So let's go ahead and click OK. Your disk size is 117 gigs. We can leave the default values. Should be fine. Set a password that you won't forget. Okay, so choose the port you would like to use for managing. So in this case, it's going to be ETH2. .0.0.1 with no default gateway. Just confirm. Management address 10.0.0.1/24. Looks good. So what we can do now is, while we're waiting, is we can actually go ahead and get started with the setup of our management endpoint on Vmware Workstation. I'll leave this over here to the side to keep an eye on that. New virtual machine, we could do typical. Go ahead and select your Windows 10 ISO. Don't worry about a product key for now. I'll name this management. Next. It's up to you. Give mine 100 gigs, single file. Give it 4 gigs and 4 cores. Okay. All right, so the installation is complete for the firewall. So let's go ahead and reboot. And now all we just have to do is wait for our Windows to finish setting up on our management machine. All right, firewall's up and running. Now the good thing with VMware is that after we have this machine set up, we can actually just duplicate it. So we can clone this to use on the data plane endpoint, as well as the Tampa firewall endpoint as well. So we won't really have to be going through this setup for each endpoint device. And we will be utilizing the duplication of templates as well for the Tampa firewall, as well as the management server. We will have to sit through the installation for each one, but at least for the template, we won't have to create one from scratch. All right, so now we got our management endpoint set up. So let's go ahead and power this off so we can utilize it within our Gns3 topology. We can close this for right now. What we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go to New Template, manually create, VMware VMs, New, run this on my local computer, and look for Management. And there it is. Click Finish. What you're going to want to do is go to Edit, Network, and allow Gns3 to override non-custom VMware adapter. Okay, apply, and okay. So let's go ahead and connect this up. And start it up. Now let's go ahead and set our IP address. To 10.0.0.200/24 with the default gateway of 10.0.0.1. And for DNS, we can just do 8.8. Okay. Let's go ahead and use Internet Explorer and see if we can connect. And perfect. So now what we can do is we can log in and go through our first time wizard. Okay, next. Perfect. That's what we did earlier. And we'll go ahead and work on the internet connection later on. DNS, we can do 8.8.8.8. Okay, we're just going to be doing a gateway on this one. We'll be setting up a separate management. And this is very important. You're going to want to make sure to remember this. This is your what's referred to as a SIC key, where you can essentially connect the gateway to a management server. Okay, the gateway is going to have to reboot. All right, go ahead and log in and set up our internet connection. Alright, so this is the home page of our web interface. What we're going to want to do next is set up our internet connection by going to our network interfaces. So we can see ETH2 is set up. So let's go ahead and set up our ETH1. So remember, this is a bridge interface, so this will be connected to your local area network on your host machine, which will be going through your local NIC, which of course will hit your router. So you can statically assign it to whatever local IPs you're using on your network. I'm just going to use DHCP. And that's it. Let's go ahead and click OK. Let's give it a sec, refresh. And there we go, did grab an IP. .50. 192.168.50 is my local area network, and it grabbed 131. So at this point, we're going to need to set a static route for my router. So we'll go ahead and edit. 192.168.50.1. And again, this is going to vary based on your home network. I'm assuming most of you guys will be on 192.168.1.1. Okay, save. And at this point, we should have internet. So let's go ahead and open up a terminal, log in, and test. It's ping quad 8. There we go. Perfect. Awesome. So we have internet connectivity. All right. So let's go ahead and do our ETH3. Let me just confirm. Actually, let's go ahead and do our ETH0. Let's do our data plane. So let's go ahead and do 172.16.10.1. Okay. And I guess while we're at it, let's go ahead and do the last one as well, which is the DMZ, which is 172.16.20.1. Okay. Great, so we have all of our network interfaces configured on our gateway. So let's go ahead and we can close this now and minimize this. And let's kind of assess where we're at now. So we have our internet connection successfully bridging out to the internet. We have our firewall 1 set up, and we have our management endpoint. So next thing is we're going to need to spin up our management server and connect it to our management switch, and finish setting up the rest of our endpoints, set up our Tampa firewall, and then last but not least, set up our AD and DMZ server. For the remainder of this video, we will be setting up our additional data plane endpoint, as well as the Tampa firewall, Tampa endpoint, and the management server. And we will leave the AD and DMZ server configuration for part 2. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started on the duplication process. This will be the easiest and fastest way to get up and running with additional endpoints, as well as additional gateways and or management servers. So let's go ahead and start off by creating the management server. So what we want to do is go to New Template, manually create a new one, go to QEMU VMs, and we're going to want to copy this. Okay, so we'll name it management. We're going to want to change the HDD to a new one. Okay, do 120 gigs again. make sure this is mounted, and drop the number of adapters down to 1. Okay. And that's going to be the same configuration for the gateway on Tampa. Well, it's going to have 2. So basically the same thing we just did, except for with 2 network adapters. Okay. Change the hard drive. Apply. And okay. So go ahead and drag the management. Connect it up. Oh, right click bug. And start. And console. And while we're doing this, we can actually go ahead and do the other one. So let's do Tampa Firewall. And it's going to be ETH1 to the internet. Yep. Oh, bug again. Start and console. Okay, so we have these 2 running. All right, so for management, it's going to be 10.0.0.1. No, actually, let's just confirm. Sorry, 10.0.0.100 with the default gateway of 10.0.0.1. Okay. We'll go ahead and manage it from ETH0 from the endpoint. It's going to be 172.16.20.100. With the default gateway, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be the router on ETH1, but ETH0 is not going to have, so we can leave that blank. So while these are running, we can start duplication of the endpoints. So we can create the data plane endpoint as well as the Tampa endpoint. So right click here, manage, clone. It's powered on, so let's go ahead and power this off. Okay, let's go back, manage, clone, next. So a linked clone is pretty cool. I don't have too much experience with it, but it references the original virtual machines, kind of like system files and things like that. I have tested it in limited experience, and I've noticed that it works. But this is mainly used to save disk space and things like that. I'm not really worried about disk space, so I'm just going to create a full clone. But if you want to use a linked clone, if you're low on disk space, that should be fine as well. So this one's going to be Miami or Windows Endpoint. Our gateway's doing, okay. And management server, I'm sorry, it's still going. And the firewall's going. Okay, let's do one more. All right, management server needs to reboot. Tampa firewall is going to need to reboot as well in a second. Okay, once those are done cloning, let's go ahead and reboot this for right now. Perfect. Let's go ahead and minimize these. Once those are done cloning, we have to add them into the topology. So again, new template, manually create. VMware VMs, new. Look for Windows Endpoint. Finish. Edit. Network, allow Gns3 to override. And let's look for Tampa Endpoint. Edit, same thing. Apply. And OK. So let's go ahead and add the Windows Endpoint here. Bug. There we go. And Tampa Endpoint here. Okay. Let's go ahead and click on the start button to load everything up. There are all the remaining endpoints. So we can see here, this button will load anything that's powered off in the topology. Okay, management server is ready to be connected to, as well as the Tampa firewall. So we can actually close these for right now. All right, let's try to connect to our management. Perfect. Here we go. Again. Next. Next. This looks good. Let's go ahead and name this management. Next. So at this point, we're going to uncheck gateway and just leave management. Any IP is fine for the virtual lab at least. All right, and let's do the first time wizard for the Tampa firewall. 172.16.20.100. Can't reach it. that's right, we have to set our IP address. Let's go with 20.100. 172.16.20.1 for our default gateway, and quad 8 is fine for that. Okay, let's try this again. Oh, there we go. So that's a conflict. So this is going to be 20.200 for the endpoint. That was a typo in the topology. I apologize. And there we go. Okay. And like the Miami firewall, we'll set up the internet connection later. And I forgot to actually rename the Miami firewall, so we'll do Tampa firewall here with quad 8. Okay, let's check on our management. Completed. And there we go. Management server is up and running. Alright, so let's see where we're at now. So we got our Miami firewall up and running. Tampa firewall is essentially going to be up and running after we're done configuring it. Management server is up and running, as well as a management endpoint and a Windows endpoint. So let's go ahead and start installing Smart Console on our management machine while we're waiting for the Tampa firewall to finish up. Oh, actually, here, let's go ahead and reboot this right now. Let's go ahead and actually just set up the internet connection on this, and then we'll go ahead and install Smart Console on the management machine. Okay, let's go ahead and log in. ETH1 is going to be our internet. Enable. Again, DHCP. Give it a sec and we'll refresh. And there we go. Grabbed an IP. Perfect. Set up the static route. Okay. Save. And let's try to ping out. Perfect. Alright, Tampa firewall is up and running. So let's go ahead and head over to our management machine and start installing Smart Console. Alright, so easiest way to do this would be to install the VMware tools. Oh, reinstall it. That means reinstalled. Alright, so that's why I like to have it on the host machine. So we can just copy it like this. And paste. Perfect. Okay, install. This is the Smart Console where we can connect to the management, add the gateways, and then push policy that will allow everything behind the gateways to go out to the internet. That's the reason why we don't have internet connectivity right now. Alright, let's go ahead and launch Smart Console. Proceed. Alright, so this is what Smart Console looks like. By default, it'll take you to the Gateways and Servers tab first. So right now all we have is our management, and we need to go ahead and add our gateway. Okay. So what we can do is we can go to New, More, Network Object, Gateways and Servers, Gateway. We could do Wizard mode. It's going to be an open server, and it's going to be 10.0.0.1. It's going to be the SIC password. And perfect. Excellent. Topology looks good. And that's it. Let's go ahead and publish our changes. Take a look at our security policies. So yeah, so we have source, destination, any to go ahead and just drop everything, which is why we're not getting an internet connection. Obviously in real life you wouldn't want to just change this to allow, but just for testing purposes in the virtual lab, let's go ahead and publish and install policy. Perfect, we have the green check mark here. Alright, let's see if I can ping out. No, so we're gonna have to create an object. So let's search for it. Okay, right here. NAT. Hide behind the gateway. Perfect. Push policy, and let's see. So the management server should have internet. I didn't set up the management endpoint object. But if we take a look, this should work. And it does, perfect. There we go. And let's go ahead and wrap this video up with getting internet connectivity on our management endpoint by doing new host, management endpoint 10.0.0.200. Let's confirm. Yep. And we'll NAT this. And install policy. Okay. And let's see. There we go. Perfect. All right, guys. I'd like to conclude video 1 at this point now. So let's go ahead and take a look and see where we're at. We have internet connectivity on our management server, Miami Firewall 1, Tampa Firewall 1, as well as Management 1. Typically when creating the rules for internet connectivity, you know, you don't need to go and create each object individually. I was just doing that for right now. You can create with network ranges and things like that. But yeah, let's go ahead and save episode 2 to create and set up the Active Directory server, as well as the DMZ web server. The remote user is optional. You can actually use your host machine to imitate a remote user due to the fact that we are on a bridge interface. You guys can also set that up as well. If anything is directly connected to the Gns3 VM, getting internet, it cannot be a local virtual machine in the sense of the way that we set up our other VMs. This will have to be a QEMU as well, the same way the appliances are. And that's it. So I'll go ahead and see you guys on episode 2. I really hope you enjoyed this, and if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Thank you, and have a good day.